Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, MJ. It's like we haven't talked at all.
Exactly. Not at all this morning. Or texted or emailed.
We're live.
Sorry.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. So Roz, whenever you're ready, you can kind of introduce us.
Good morning, everybody. This is Rosalind Lett, the director of the Clayton County Library System. This morning, we're going to provide for you a program called the Impact of Fatherhood. This is the first in a series of 3 or possibly 4 sessions that we will have on fatherhood. This particular program is sponsored from the library as well as the Community Action Network of the Clayton County Health District. And the part from the library is supported by all of us. All of us is a research program that is an ambitious effort to gather health data from 1 million or more people living in the United States to accelerate health research and to improve health. The part from the library is supported by one of the things that they're looking at is the biology, the environment, and the lifestyle of people in the United States to see how they can determine better ways of improving our health. So if any of you are interested in all of us, there will be a link on our website, which is at claytonpl.org, to take you to more information about all of us so that you can sign up for the clinical trial if you'd like to, or you can just follow the process. So we're going to get started with the program, and I will turn it back over to Marquita. But have a great day and enjoy the program.
Okay, so first up we have Mr. Scott Parham, the Deputy Director for the Clayton County Library System, who would present on Medlineplus. And I will load the introductory video, and then after that video plays, you can take it away, Scott. 1 second.
Where do you go when looking for information about a disease or health condition? Most likely you consult Dr. Google. We all turn to the internet at some point, even though we know it may not be the best way to find information that is evidence-based and trustworthy. One of the reasons we turn to the internet is that we get results, right? Lots and lots of results. And we don't know which of those results are the ones we should be using. And in this day and age of COVID-19, it's even more evident that a lot of misinformation is out there. You may already know about Medlineplus, but there may be some things you didn't know about it, as it is always changing and evolving. Medlineplus is the consumer health resource produced by the National Library of Medicine. This is the place where you and your patrons can go for health information. Why is it such a great resource? For one thing, instead of you going to Google and trying to sift through the tons of information, Medlineplus has already done that for you. It doesn't create the information, but seeks information, and then it goes through a strict set of guidelines, such as no advertisements before being included. Medlineplus also has these wonderful health topic pages, so it organizes it in a much more user-friendly way. You can get an overview, where to start, diagnosis and tests and treatments, as well as related other health topics. And you also get to see where the information is coming from. One of the newest features on Medlineplus is Medlineplus Genetics. Until recently, the National Library of Medicine had a consumer resource called Genetics Home Reference, but now that information is located right here at Medlineplus.
Alrighty, Scott, you can take it away.
Alrighty, thank you. Let me go ahead and try to share my screen with you. Are you able to see the library's screen? Because I'm seeing me in my camera.
Yep, got it.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Parham. I'm the Deputy Director for the Clayton County Library System. And today I'm going to show you Medlineplus. We saw a brief video about Medlineplus, but I'm going to go over it a little bit and then dive into a little more detail and talk about one of the men's health-related topics that is very prevalent today to men. So Medlineplus, the web address is medlineplus.gov or medlineplus.gov. You can type that in, or what I'm going to show you is actually from the library's webpage. And so if you go to claytonpl.org and you see these tabs at the top, and if you come to learning and research, you'll see a listing of topics, and we'll scroll down to health literacy. And that opens up another page full of wonderful resources. And one of the resources under general health sites that we'll see is Medlineplus. And so we'll click on that. And it jumps us into a screen that should look familiar from the video we just saw a few moments ago. And what I'd like to do is first ask a question. There's something on this page that you don't see in a normal website, and that primarily are advertisements. Medlineplus is full of rich, authenticated information about health literacy, but one of the things you won't see are advertisements for anything actually. So what we're going to do is talk about the geography or the layout of the page, and then we're going to dive into a topic to show you a little bit more about what information is available and what you can find. So at the top of the page, we have a search box, search Medlineplus, and right up underneath that, we have several links. And the first one I'd like to point out really is just about Medlineplus. So if you're curious or interested, why this resource is available, what it's all about, you can click on that link and bam, shows you several other tabs of information. General information about Medlineplus, the history of it, a description. Up underneath that, how to use Medlineplus, information for developers, as well as you can subscribe to and get email updates from their newsletter and website. On the right-hand side here in the blue box, you'll see Medlineplus is a service of the National Library of Medicine, the world's largest medical library, and our mission is to present high-quality, relevant health and wellness information that's trusted, easy to understand, and free of advertising. and it's available in both English and Spanish, anywhere, anytime, on any device. And yes, it is for free. Okay. So if you're interested in learning more about why Medlineplus is available, the development of it, you can go to this link here. So I'm going to jump back out, and this is the main homepage. And across the top, you'll see a banner that includes health topics, drugs and supplements, genetics, medical tests, videos, and tools. And if you notice on the left-hand side, going down the page, you'll see several of those same topics or same tabs. On the left-hand side, there are a couple of additional ones: medical encyclopedia and healthy recipes. In the middle of the page, there's a banner that provides information for different topics. So the first one there is signing up for vaccine trial, learning more about rare diseases, talking about adults and high blood pressure, and a disease, tachycardia, again, information about heart disease. So again, no ads, no advertisements, nothing that folks are trying to sell you. So scrolling down the page a little bit more, underneath at the bottom here, we've got easy to read materials, organization and directories, health information in multiple languages. And let me go ahead and click on that real quick to let you see just the wealth of information and the variety of information in different languages. And so we've got Albanian, and I won't read them all to you, but you can just see as I'm slowly scrolling down. Medlineplus is available in all of these different languages. So very nice, very helpful. Go back to the main screen. Okay. If you are interested in subscribing to their magazine or wanting to stay connected to their newsletter, there's the tab here at the right. In the middle of the page is an area that shows the tweets that Medlineplus puts out. And so again, if you're interested, you can go on Twitter and link to Medlineplus, and you can see the tweets or have access to those. If I'm going too fast, please throw up a hand or shoot me a chat, and I can slow down and go over some things in more detail. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into a couple of the links. And again, the first several at the top are the same as the ones on the left-hand side. So health topics up the top banner is the same as the health topics link on the left-hand side. Provides the same information. And what they've done under health topics is it allows you multiple ways to search for the health information that you're looking for. There is a banner or ribbon at the top, an A to Z, where it lists all of the topics that are available. So if you're looking for shingles, you can go over here to S, click on the S, scroll down, and we see shingles. Okay. Scrolling back up at the top, if I go back to the main screen, if I want to search it for another way for it, they have grouped health topics by certain categories. So body locations, disorders, conditions, demographic groups, health, wellness, and diagnosis and therapy. So if I were looking for shingles, which is a virus, and one of these other ways, I could either go a multitude of different things. I could go to infections. I could go to, let's see, it's not endocrine, immune system possibly. So we can get to that virus in a multitude of different ways. And I'm going to dive into one here in just a few, but just wanted to show you you can access or find, look for various medical conditions in a variety of ways. Okay, going back out to the home screen. Let's say that you go to the doctor and something is ailing you and the doctor prescribes you some medication and you've never heard of that medication. Well, there's a link here, drugs and supplements, again, that you can search for that particular medicine. And it's arranged, again, A to Z. So you can click on the letter that that medication starts with, and I'm just selecting M. And as you can see, it lists a multitude of different medications that are available. The next tab over, or the next tab on the left-hand side, is genetics. We're finding out that more and more health conditions have a genetic link. So if you have a parent or a family member who suffers from a particular ailment, disease, it might be hereditary, and it might mean that later on in life, you might also suffer from that same ailment. And so in this genetics tab, we can learn about genetic conditions, the signs and symptoms, those ailments that are inherited. We could also find information about genes. What is a gene? Also information about chromosomes, mitochondrial DNA, and the link here at the bottom. If you have no idea what genetics is, you can click on this link and it will explain just exactly what genetics is. And the other wonderful thing is, under the related topics on the right here, it talks about it and it actually describes, well, what is a gene? What is DNA? So let's click on that real quick. DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, is a hereditary material in humans and almost all other organisms. So again, this gives you a description of what DNA is, and you can start your search from a baseline of understanding what you're looking for and how it relates to your topic. Okay. Going back out. Going across the next tab, we've got medical tests. Again, that A to Z, and listing of just about every medical test that's available. Again, going to your physician and they're asking, or not asking, but telling you that we need to sign you up to go get this test done, and you have no idea what it is. You can take that and come here to Medlineplus and find some more information about it. Next tab at the top here is videos and tools. We've got health videos, Medlineplus, health check tools, and games that boost your health knowledge by playing some interactive health games. We've got an understanding medical words tutorial, which could be very helpful, and evaluating health information tutorial. So wealth of information. Let's click on health videos real quick and we can kind of get an idea of just how many videos out there relating to health issues. So quite a few. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier there was just a slight discrepancy at the tabs in the ribbon at the top versus the ones going down the left-hand side here. The left-hand side, we've got medical encyclopedia and healthy recipes, which we didn't see across the top. And as well as, we did medical tests. So medical encyclopedia. This area is information provided, which includes articles about diseases, tests, symptoms, injuries, and surgeries, and also photographs and illustrations. And again, it's arranged from A to Z, an A to Z list. In the last tab here to the left, we've got a tab to keep you healthy and healthy lifestyles, and that's healthy recipes. So if you're looking for recipes for yourself or your family, your children. You want to try different options for breakfast and lunch. You're tired of the same old thing. You can come to this site, and it provides you very rich information on, pun intended, different recipes and food options. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the layout of the page and the tabs that are available. Let's jump into a topic that is particular to men. And the one that we're going to jump into today is prostate cancer. A lot of men suffer from prostate cancer. A lot of men of color, I'll say also, suffer from this disease. And it's important that we provide as much information on this topic so that those who suffer from it can get the help that they need. Sometimes it's daunting going to see a physician for a myriad of reasons, but information, if you are concerned, apprehensive about going to the doctor, at least you can come here and do your preliminary research about just what it is, the different drug treatments, the different tests that they can run. So hopefully that will put someone's mind at ease before going to actually see a physician or their primary care. So what I'm going to do is show you a couple of ways to search for prostate cancer. It is a health topic, so I can either here or click on this link, and I can either search in my A to Z ribbon for prostate cancer and go to P and scroll down the page. We'll get to the PRs, PROs, prostate cancer. Okay. Click on the link, and it takes me here to prostate cancer. Or if I go back to health topics, remember how they've already got them categorized. I can go here to cancers and scroll down to prostate cancer and get to the same information. What does it tell me? It gives me a summary of what prostate cancer is, screening, the tests that can be run. This paragraph: to diagnose prostate cancer, your doctor may do a digital rectal exam to feel the prostate. You may also get a blood test, for PSA. These tests are also used in prostate cancer screening, or if your results are abnormal, you may need more tests such as an ultrasound. Well, what is an ultrasound? We can click on ultrasound, and it lets us know exactly what that medical test is. Now, I could have gone back out and gone up to medical tests, clicked on that and typed in or did a search for ultrasound, but the link shoots me right here, which is very helpful. So I don't have to go out and search for it in another tab. So this provides information on what exactly an ultrasound is. Okay. And there are two main categories. You can do pregnancy or diagnostic. Okay. Other names for the ultrasound. Okay. Ultrasound can be used in different ways depending on the type of ultrasound. This one here talks specifically about pregnancy, but there are other different types of ultrasounds that test for other parts of the body. Okay, so let's go back out to the prostate cancer, and I'm going to do a quick shortcut: cancers, scroll down, back to prostate. Okay. Now on this page, in addition to the summary, scrolling down, you'll see in bold, start here. There's general information about what it is, which is provided by the National Cancer Institute. So not only do you have the link, but you also have information of where this resource or where this information is coming from. So if you do a Google search and you're searching for prostate cancer, you'll get millions of hits. Do you know where those hits are coming from or are linked back to? Chances are no. So here on Medlineplus, it kind of walks you step by step through everything. It tells you, start here, read basic information, general information on what it is, provided by different authoritative organizations. Then, what are the symptoms? What are prostate cancer symptoms? Let's click on that. Okay. There's a brief video. It tells us the different bullets. If you're urinating frequently, if you have difficulty starting or holding your urination, all of these different bullet points are symptoms that you may have an issue related to your prostate. Okay. Diagnosis and test. Can it be found early? What are some of the tests? What are some of the screenings? What are the preventions, risk factors, and treatments, therapies? What are some of the drugs that are approved for prostate cancer? Well, if you remember back to the overview, there was a tab for drugs and supplements. So let's just say, click on drugs that are approved. Here are some of the drugs that are approved for prostate cancer. All of these are hyperlinked. But let's just say our doctor told us, yeah, we're looking at prescribing you, what is this one? Docetaxel. All right. No idea what that is. Let's go back here. Scroll up, drugs and supplements. Go to my D. And make sure I remember how to spell it, DOCE. And I can scroll down to docetaxel. Why is it prescribed? What is it used for? So again, it gives me all the information that I actually need about that medication if I am suffering from prostate cancer or have prostate issues. Okay. So let's jump back into prostate cancer. So we've gone through the general information, diagnosis test, the drug treatment, living with prostate cancer, genetics, statistics and research, clinical trials, as well as you see as I'm scrolling down, a lot of information. So if you have any questions on prostate cancer, any other health-related topic, instead of going to Google, instead of going to Bing or some of the other search engines that are out there, strongly suggest and encourage, go to Medlineplus. Again, the website for Medlineplus is medlineplus.gov, or you can link to it directly from the Clayton County Library System's website, which is claytonpl.org. And that pretty much concludes my overview of Medlineplus. Any questions?
We actually have two in the chat.
Okay.
The first one says, would I need my library card to access Medlineplus?
No. As we saw when I first logged on, this is the library's website. Again, going over to learning and research, health literacy tab. And if you don't want to go through the library's website, you can just type it directly into your search screen. And let me show you, well, can I do that? Marquita will allow me to do that.
It should, yes.
Okay, let me close you. Create another tab. Medlineplus.gov, and it brings me here. It's a free resource. Don't need to authenticate by your library card or anything. Either way of getting there should be relatively easy. What other questions, man?
This one was about the, I guess, the recipes tab. So can the recipes be saved or downloaded?
Let's see here. For breakfast. Any berry sauce. I don't see where you can download it. You can send it to your email, or email it to, or send it to one of these other links, or I think you might be able to copy and paste it. Yeah, I don't see a download tab or print, but you can definitely send it to yourself or send it to an email address where you can manipulate it from there.
Okay, that's it for the questions so far.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I thank you so much for joining me today, participating. And if you have any additional questions, you can send them to the chat window. I will be on the call for a little while longer and would love to answer anything I can. Thank you much.
Okay, next up we have Miss Rebecca and Miss Marisha to talk to us about job searching skills through Job Now.
Good morning, everyone. I am Rebecca James. I am the Assistant Director in charge of Youth Services. And as you can assume, part of that is responsibility for making sure that we teach people how to use different things. So I'm going to start you out with one of our newer references, which is called Job Now. We are very happy with this resource to share with you. So I'm going to start you here with the library's website, claytonpl.org. When you come to the row of gray tabs here, you will come to Learning and Research. Scroll down to Electronic Resources. On our electronic resources page, scroll down until you see the research databases and online training. And we're going to share with you BrainFuse's Job Now. This is a resource that provides you with live job coaching, real-time interview practicing, full service resume lab, and they will help you actually apply for jobs, get the interview skills that you need, and other wonderful resources. So I'm going to click on BrainFuse Job Now. This resource does require a library card number, so make sure that you do have, I'm going to make it larger for us, make sure that you do have a Clayton County library card so that you can have access to this resource. Type in your card number. And these are your options. So you can focus on resumes, getting live resume assistance, accessing templates, going online outside of the BrainFuse website and getting online resources, You can type up your resume and then submit it online to the resume experts at JobNow, and they will send back recommendations for changes so that you will have the best possible resume that you can. You have the option of job interviews where you can access a live interview coach, go online to see interview tips, and get reputable online resources. There's also your career option where you can have a live job coach, receive unemployment assistance, take career assessments, find job resources, look at skills, and an e-parachute. So that's our overview. What I'm going to tell you is that you do need to create an account. The reason that I recommend creating an account is that everything that you do in this database gets saved. Every interaction with one of the experts, you can refer back to it. Every resume that you submit for feedback, you can refer back to it. When you go into the Skills Surfer and do practice tests and training, you can refer back to it. So please make sure that you do create an account so that you have access to all of that. I'm going to log into mine right now. So let's say that you are wanting to start with your resume. JobNow provides the resume experts, the interview coaches, and the job coaches every day. And I'm going to highlight the blue bar here, okay? Every day from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. That means that if you log in at 7 o'clock and you need to talk to somebody about your resume or interview skills or just looking for a job or getting feedback on what you need to do to improve your job, you can log in, and these are certified coaches who are there available to help you, all right? But because it's not 2 p.m., we are going to start with our resume template. The resume template, and let me see if I can increase our screen. It's just basic. For everybody who's ever had to do a resume, you have your choices. Are you going to do a chronological resume? Are you going to do a combination resume or a functional resume? I'm old school, and I always start with a chronological resume, and then I end up changing it and making it different. But let me see where when I clicked on it, it opened up a window at the bottom that I then had to click on, as you probably saw that, so that it will now open up the Word document so that I can fill in my resume. And I apologize for it being slow. Here we go. And as you can see, it's a very standard resume. You're going to be able to fill in all of your information. And I do like that in the red that they give you information about, they explain what the purpose of that section is. So under the objective for profile, the standard objective is always to be included on resume. I'm sorry, that the standard objective that always used to be included on resumes is completely outdated. So as you can see, they're explaining to you that if you wrote a resume 10 years ago and you had that objective on there, you need to update your resume so that you are showing that you are keeping up with expectations that are out and about nowadays for you to apply for your job. The good thing about this is they will give you the background so that you can have your template, you can fill it in, save it, and then I'm going to minimize this and go back here, because once you've saved your resume, and I'm going to click on the home again, you can come to the resume lab, which is fourth down on the list, and you can upload your resume and it will go to a resume expert and they will read through it and they will send you feedback. Do know that that feedback will include you being able to ask for specifics. Do you just want them to tell you if it reads well? Is it smooth? Is it getting your experience across to the employer? Or do you want them to only check for spelling and grammar errors? You have that option as you submit this resume. And that's I have to say that I wish that this was an option that was available years ago, as I've gone through my different careers and applied for jobs and been able to get feedback. So I'm going to click back on home. I know that I've only got a few minutes left. So that gives you an idea. Resume writing, where you can just plug in your information. When you need somebody to assist you, if it's between 2 p.m. and 11 p.m., choose Live Resume Expert. And as you can see, it's not going to allow you in right now. It says that, sorry, Job Now coaches are available every day from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. Please log on during that time. But as you saw, you can go ahead and submit your resume and they will work with you when they do become available. You'll also receive a message through My Message Center under your account of when they are ready to work with you, or if they have sent any type of feedback back to you. So that's another reason why having that account set up is so, so important. I'm going to come back to the home. Job interviews. Live interview coach, again, available between 2 p.m. and 11 p.m. You can go ahead and receive interview tips before the interview, at the interview, common questions and sample responses, answering substantive questions, answers to ask, questions to ask the interviewer, the don'ts of interviewing, and then after the interview. Back to the home screen. Career resources. Anyone who is needing to file for unemployment, once again, between 2 p.m. and 11 p.m., the Live Unemployment Benefits Navigator. Okay. As you can see, I'm trying to sneak in early and get assistance, but the great thing is you can also, through this option, try to schedule someone So you could go online at 2 o'clock and ask to schedule someone for, say, 3 o'clock, and make sure that you have your time available there. There are online resources for the unemployment assistance. And because we are in Georgia, well, that's not where I'm supposed to be. I apologize. That did not take me where I'm supposed to be. So let me come back out to home. As I said, you can do career assessments. So there are online tests that you can take, and I call them tests, but little quizzes for you to set up a profile to show what you're interested in, and then connect you to jobs that you could apply for. Then you've got your career aptitude test that you can take and go for some career planning also. Under the career resources, there's also the section that they call Skill Surfer. And Skill Surfer is really phenomenal because it provides you all of these resources. So if you didn't finish high school and you're trying to get your GED, you can come to the high school equivalency test, and you can do all of the preparation and then all of the practice for GED. And then you can go in and schedule your exam and take that. The great thing, there are many great things about Job Now. For you as a Clayton County library card holder, this is totally free to you. This is available through the internet 24/7. So you can be a person who's awake at 1 a.m. every day, and you can go in and you can do practice tests. And because you have your Job Now account, you can come back and access those practice tests and be able to get feedback through your coaches, so that you can get more assistance, so that you have every chance available to get the job that you want to have, and make sure that you have all the knowledge and background that you need so that you can have that job. I know that I've hit you with an awful lot of information, but I do want you to know that all you have to do is reach out to the libraries. We're here to help you. We'll walk you through how to use this. So please use this. It's a great resource. And there are so many opportunities that we are able to help you get the job that you need, apply for unemployment, and be successful. Any questions or comments, Marquita?
Nope, no questions.
Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing. So thank you. I know that we're hitting you with a lot of information, but it's important stuff, and we're here to work with you and provide these resources. So thanks for letting me talk to you today.
Cool, thank you, Rebecca. Next up on the agenda is me. So I'm going to talk to you today about our newest, program, Interplay Learning. Go ahead and share. Okay. So Interplay Learning was founded in 2016. and is the leading global provider of online and virtual reality training for essential skills trades. Interplay delivers digital learning simulations for HVAC, plumbing, electrical, solar, and facilities maintenance workforce. It leverages commercive learning technology and allows its participants in the program to practice via hands-on learning and receive training so that they could be job ready for any of these fields in a matter of weeks, not years as it normally takes. We are going to jump right into the dashboard of Interplay. So Interplay has several different areas within their catalog. This particular one is for a multifamily facility maintenance training program. So you can see it's broken down into what they call competency paths. So the pathways provide the easiest route to have people who are training within this particular area get the skills that they need quickly and efficiently. So they'll start with HVAC fundamentals, fundamentals part 2, electrical and controls, diagnostics, and then cooling diagnostics. The interesting thing about each one of these is that at the end of most of the courses, there is what's called a learning check-in or a knowledge check. And so what that knowledge check does is ask the person going through the training 2 or 3 questions, maybe more depending on how in-depth the program they just finished was, to test their knowledge of what they just learned in real time. Let me jump back a little bit. So like I mentioned before, they do offer training in HVAC. So this is standard, so small houses, apartment complexes, etc. Commercial HVAC, so for large corporations like your big buildings downtown. Solar, again, a combination of commercial and residential. Plumbing, that's going to be pretty much standard no matter where you are, but they do have some courses that go more in depth when you're servicing multiple facilities. Electrical, mentioned before, multifamily facility maintenance, and then some safety courses as well. Commercial HVAC actually just got released yesterday. So before they only offered standard HVAC trainings, commercial HVAC is the newest addition in their catalog. And like I said, it was mentioned yesterday. I should also mention that Interplay won the Artificial Intelligence Breakthrough Award for the best use of virtual reality for an enterprise application for 2020, so last year. As mentioned before, the Clayton County Library System offers access to Interplay to our patrons at no cost to the patron. We receive funding from a humanities grant to be able to purchase several licenses. I'm happy to say that our first round should be coming to an end this week for our first round participants. Our second round had a wait list. That wait list was full within 48 hours. So once our second round begins, we will open another wait list, and I imagine that it will be full as well. But if you are one of the fortunate ones who are participating in it right now, when you sign in, you will see the dashboard here. On this side, you'll see your courses. As you can see, I'm in plumbing. It also gives you statistics. So you can set a weekly goal for how many points you want to earn, or you can just kind of casually go through. It gives you a leaderboard. So if it was in a full class, you would see your name and your points for the week. And then below, you would see others that are in your same course and how many points they've earned for the week as well. It lists the competency paths and then your learning paths. If you were set on a dedicated one, we have a separate learning path that is just for our Clayton County building and maintenance participants. And so that path was custom built with input from the building and maintenance staff about what areas they wanted to have more heavily focus on. All right. I'm going to stop talking, and I'm actually going to show you, or attempt to show you, one of our training scenarios. Like I mentioned before, Interplay offers training with 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and virtual reality trainings. It is our goal that once the current pandemic is controlled and gone away, and we can offer in-person programming again, to allow participants to come into the library at some point and do one or more trainings within our virtual reality set. But for now, I will show you what it looks like via a 3-dimensional training once it loads. Okay. As you can see, the title is we are attempting to repair a damaged basket strainer gasket. Click Start Sim. And so as you can see, this is more of a 3D model. We've got directions across the top, so it gives you your list of tasks of what you're supposed to do in order to complete the training. So the sink isn't working properly. Click OK, and it takes you to your next step. So it says approach the sink, which we are. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can rotate the screen to get a full view of the learning environment. Again, inside a virtual reality helmet, it's much more realistic. Click OK. It's asking if the sink is leaking. If I can zoom in a little bit here. Yes, it is. I'll click yes. Inspect the basket strainer. Is the basket strainer leaking? If you're a full plumber and you're into this, you probably know exactly what a basket strainer is. I do not, but I am learning. So in the event that you selected an incorrect answer, it will prompt you here with a red square with a white X in it telling you no, that is not the correct answer, in which point it will mirror you back. And then you'll continue through the simulation as is. Click OK. So again, very detailed, very realistic to what a standard kitchen sink would look like, whether in an apartment or a home. And it, again, will take you step by step through each step of replacing the gasket, which is what it's done here. It will walk you through replacing all of the pieces that you took off of the sink, reinstalling the tailpiece, removing the rag. I'm going to put the P-trap back. Emptying the water bucket. And now that we've gone through the simulation, now it's time to check and see if all the repairs that we've done were successful in getting the sink back to working. So our sink is properly draining. There are no leaks that we can see from this angle. I don't see any leaks. So we can confidently say there are any leaks present? No. Gives you a confirmation here. The sink has been repaired. Click Finish. Complete the activity, and it takes you right back to the course page. All right. Gives you a success check. And as I mentioned before, there is a knowledge check for this. I'll go ahead and launch it. It'll ask you a couple of questions. What is a likely place? Basket strainer, submit. And if you get it incorrect, it will tell you. So you'll go through, submit your answers, and gives you a final score. You can retake a knowledge check. There's a final knowledge check once you get through all of the training simulations, and then they give you an option to give course feedback. One thing I will say about the courses for Interplay is that they are built and created by true professionals. A lot of the organizations that partner with Interplay actually contribute to the creation of their coursework. So feedback to them is important because they do listen to participants and they do listen to organizations like ours that give them feedback from patrons like you. And that wraps up Interplay. Mr. Johnson, are you ready to present or do you need a few minutes?
I am ready to present if you're ready.
Yeah, okay. So we'll jump right into our last session for today. And correct me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Is it Demetricus?
That is it.
Perfect. All right. So Demetricus Johnson is a program specialist for the Federal Office of Child Support Enforcement. He has worked in the Atlanta Regional Office since July of 2009. He is currently responsible for providing technical assistance to Georgia and South Carolina IVD. He also serves as a fatherhood liaison and point of contact for regional inquiries. Within his capacity, he served as the director of the Program Development Unit. His professional interests range from program evaluation, quality improvement to strategic planning. He received his Master's of Public Administration from Georgia State University and a Bachelor's of Science from Alabama A&M University. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Marquita. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Letts and the Clayton County Library System for inviting me to be part of this appetite whet tester of just getting you to know a little bit more about what child support is about. I think about this as just an opportunity to kind of whet your appetite, to kind of get you thinking about some of the issues that you've heard, that you experienced, and things that you never really brought to the table. To give you a little bit more background about myself, as you say, I'm a program specialist within the Federal Office of Child Support. My role is more program management, program oversight, technical assistance, policy to states in our region. And here within Region 4 for the federal office, we have roughly 8 states in one tribe. And what many of you may not be aware of, the child support program from the federal level that provides funding and oversight, we actually not only fund states and territories, we also fund tribes to do their own tribal child support program, which is a little bit outside the scope of this presentation. But what I want to do today is kind of give you the ins and outs of child support. Before I'm kind of moving forward, I want to kind of give a little bit of housekeeping reminders, if it's okay. You're welcome, as I said before, to ask any questions. I know we have a chat box that's available. Please, please, please ask anything. Nothing's off the table when it comes to any of your issues. I will say this, however, if there's something that's personal for safeguarding privacy, I may have to take it off record, which means I may have to speak to you offline and kind of address your issue personally, especially if it identifies you in your case and your circumstances. So when it comes to Marquita and Dr. Lett, I'll make sure that my information is passed along to those of need so that you can circle back to me at least by email or even by voice to kind of get many of your issues addressed. So I want to say this, and I want to throw this out there. For those of you who are not part of the child support program, who feel that the child support program is like, why am I listening to this? I want to throw something out there to you guys. The child support program, we serve 1 in 4 families. Now let's take a little bit deeper. In child support, we also serve 1 in 2 poor families. Take a little deeper, we serve more fathers than any organization in this world than the Department of Defense. So when it comes to our presence, our impact, and are we going to be a fixture in the lives of many of our families? We are. And there's so many ways to get in our program. So I kind of want to take you briefly from entry, some of the services, some of the issues, and kind of help you navigate the system because it's complex. Let me tell you, it's so complex that I've been in the program since 2009, and I learned something every day. And I work daily in this program. So I can only imagine for maybe those of you on the call or maybe those you serve, some of the issues and how difficult it is to navigate a system that you heard about, you may have experienced here and there, but you don't understand maybe what you've done or failed to do or failed to take advantage of when you initially entered the program may have some far lingering consequences. So before I take a dive into who we are and what we provide, I want to throw some terms out there. When Marquita was reading my bio, she used the term 4D, and I think some of you guys are probably thinking like, what in the world is 4D? As many of you know, we work in government, so we always use acronyms. 4D pertains to Title 4D of the Social Security Act. What that initially just says is that we were authorized in 1975. And that's the Authorization Act that really made us a program, give us the ability, the authority to provide funding and oversight to many of the grantees we have throughout the country. As for terms, additional terms, you may hear me use the term non-custodial parent. That is just a person who's obligated by a child support order to pay the support. I may use a term like custodial parent. That's someone who's owed support, who has the right to the support and also has custody or care of the child or children. I may use terms like arrearages. That's unpaid support, like many of you are probably aware. Current support is dealing with, well, I'm gonna go back to arrearages. Arrearages is unpaid support that's the non-custodial parent failed to pay. Current support deals with that monthly obligation that someone has to pay for support. In the governmental, we serve parents regardless where you at. If you guys move from Georgia to Florida to Puerto Rico, we provide services. We provide partnership and we collaborate with territory, states, regardless of where you at, to make sure that you're meeting the needs that we need to make sure that we're serving you for child support purposes. Also, you hear terms like a full or partial case, and I may bring it up. Think of it this way. A full case is when someone is in our child support system. A partial case is like someone has hypothetically a divorce decree and there's no body, there's no agency that's enforcing your child support obligation. So before moving forward, I kind of want to just throw out those terms, let you know some of our impact and context. So let's kind of get into the child support system. We know that we serve a lot of families, but many of you may be or maybe the clients that you serve may not necessarily be familiar with how do you get in the system. To be honest with you, I get questions all the time from clients call our office directly saying that maybe the custodial mother or the custodial father didn't apply for services. Why in the world is child support involved in my life? Well, look at it from this perspective. In many states, when you apply for Medicaid, in many states, when you apply for TANF, temporary assistance for needy families, in some states, when you apply for food stamps, and now based on interest by other states in the country, sometime when you apply for childcare, there may be an agreement between that program to send a request, an application to the child support program for reimbursement, because they're providing that assistance and they're asking the child support program to assist them with reimbursing for delivery and offering that public assistance either to the custodial parent or to the child. And they're going to seek reimbursement through that non-custodial father or non-custodial mother. And I'm very specific to say parent and non-custodial father and mother, because sometimes the vast majority of our non-custodial parents are fathers, roughly maybe 89, 87%. But we do have custodial mothers out there. And also we do have custodial mothers and non-custodial mothers, but also we have non-custodial grandparents, because sometimes based on laws of the state, some parents or some grandparents can be obligated for the child support of their minor child. And I'll get into a scenario that can occur. And actually one of those states is South Carolina. So getting into the program, you can certainly get into the program by public assistance. Someone applied for services and there was a request for reimbursement to the child support program. Another way to get into the system is apply. Now, a lot of times I hear from especially fathers who tell me all the time, why would I want to apply to child support? Maybe the mother applied, or maybe I hear from mothers as well. Maybe the custodial father applied, but he did that. But why would I, as a non-custodial parent, want to apply for services? Well, if you don't really realize, there is some benefits to it. What many of you may not be aware of is that at any time, if you're a non-custodial father, and if someone says that you are the punitive or the alleged father to her child, you can apply for child support services in many states. And if you're determined not to be that father, they will close the case. And also, they will not charge you in many states a fee for paternity testing. So when applying for child support, it could be a way for many, I tell this a lot of young fathers as well, it could be a way for many young fathers and also fathers, period, to kind of protect themselves and understand, okay, am I really the biological father for their child? So to kind of talk about it, there are two ways to get into our program, through public assistance or application. But I really want to talk about the real benefits to our program. Paternity. Many of you probably hear about paternity on television, maybe the Maury Povich show. You see people, talk about DNA testing, among other things. And we always think about paternity as being a cut and dry issue, but there's multiple ways to establish paternity. Let me give you a case in point of how important paternity is. And when I say paternity, I'm talking about you are determined to be the biological father. You are determined to be the biological father. There's multiple ways to do that. The importance of that is years ago, I received a call from a young lady in another state. She was a client. She was frustrated. She was frustrated because of, heaven forbid, it was unfortunate, her child's father passed away. And he had a child with her, and also he had two other kids. She realized when talking to the other mothers that these two other kids was getting Social Security benefits based on the eligibility status of the deceased father. But her child was not getting that benefit. So she called me, and understandably, when people are upset, you gotta let them get it out. So she had some choice words for me for at least 30 minutes. But she called, she talked to me for a while, and I finally said, okay, ma'am, how can I help you? What's going on? And she said, listen, I want my child to receive the same thing that her siblings are receiving currently. And she told me that he was deceased. I said, no problem. What I'll do is reach out to the child support agency and see can they, because paternity is very important, to see can they reach out to his biological parents, his sisters or brothers, and say, this young lady says that your deceased son is the biological father. Will you come in for a DNA paternity swab to determine genetically are you connected to this child? Unfortunately, paternity was never established at any time. And when I reached out, when the child support agency reached out to the parents, we couldn't compel the parents. The parents did not want to participate. So I had to go back to this mother and tell this mother that due to the fact that the biological father never established paternity, well, really, we don't know he's the biological father, but I'm assuming that who you say is the biological father never established paternity. I can't compel his parents, his siblings, his cousins to do swab or paternity swab because they don't want to do it. So your child, unfortunately, unless they change their mind, could be barred benefits permanently. So the interesting thing about paternity is that paternity allows the child to reap benefits legally, maybe through Social Security or other agencies. The other benefit to paternity is that maybe the child wants maybe the health records of his or her father, and maybe through connecting and deciding, determining that there's a biological connection, she's now able to, maybe based on her debilitating issues, get more information that she can be or he can be more strategic about how to address their health issues moving forward. So paternity is very important, but when I said earlier about, I threw Maury Povich out there just being facetious, but we always hear about DNA testing, which honestly is one of the best ways to determine if you're the biological parent. There are other ways to do so. What many of you don't know, in the hospitals, they have what they call a paternity acknowledgement form. Some of you on the call may have signed the form, may have been involved in the form. And what that form is saying is that I acknowledge that I am the father. I acknowledge I'm the biological father to the child. So I don't need a DNA test. I don't need anything else because the child was born out of wedlock, and I want to acknowledge I am the biological parent. Now, that is a tool that a lot of parents could use, and it's a great tool to use. But I will say this, and I tell this to a lot of fathers, alleged or punitive fathers, that you're acknowledging, but you may not necessarily be certain. And the last thing you want to do is maybe acknowledge paternity. You don't rescind that acknowledgement within the time frame, so it becomes a legal finding that you're the biological parent. And now years go by, and you're questioning that connection, but paternity has already been established. And when it comes to many states, the child support agency is not, because you feel that now I may not be the biological parent 10, 12 years ago, is not going to go back and disestablish paternity. That's not our responsibility. We establish paternity. We establish orders. We enforce orders. We enforce healthcare and medical support. But what we don't do is disestablish paternity. So to kind of give you an example of that, I had a father call me about 2 years ago. He found out through some health-related information that his 16-year-old daughter was not his biological child. He called me, said, I love the child. I want to be involved in the child's life. However, I have arrearages. Remember I said arrearages for the term is unpaid support. He had roughly $30,000 to $40,000 of unpaid support that was owed to the mother. And he told me, he said, Demetrius, I need your help with wiping away that support. I went and looked at his case, and I realized he acknowledged support years ago. He acknowledged support. And to be honest, I can go to a hospital right now with the consent of the custodial mother, and I can acknowledge support for hundreds of kids myself. But he acknowledged support. He didn't do DNA testing. And since he held himself out, since he was the legal biological father, those arrearages that was on his case was his. It was not the biological parent, whoever that is. That was his arrearages. And what the only thing I could do for the child support program, the only thing I could ever do was to work with the child support program since the child's 16 and age of emancipation was 18 in the state, to get the child support program to stop the tolling or enforcing of ongoing support since she's 16 to 18. So he had 2 years where he's not going to be responsible for the ongoing support. But when it comes to that unpaid balance, those arrearages, that 30, 40, whatever amount that he had on the books, is a tough conversation. I told him, since you acknowledge paternity, and since an order was established based on that acknowledgement and you never rescinded it, the child, that debt is yours. That debt's going to continue to follow you because that debt is owed to the mother. And what many of you may not be aware, that when debt is owed to a parent, custodial mother, custodial father, no entity can wipe that debt away. The court can't wipe it away. Demetrius here in the federal office, I can't wipe it away, nor can the non-custodial parent wipe it away, maybe based on circumstance. The only person who can wipe away that debt that's owed to her or him as custodial parent is the custodial parent. And that was a tough conversation, but I throw it out there just kind of give you some context to understand how important paternity can be. But again, I said earlier, DNA testing is one route. Paternity acknowledgement is another route. There's also another form of established paternity, which you all may be aware of, by marriage. Of course, when you married the child support program, you come with unfortunately, maybe a divorce decree or order, and we will move forward and kind of assist you with services. There is finally a fourth way where paternity can be established. And if you're talking to any of your clients and your family and your friends, please tell them that be very careful how you respond to the child support program. Because when we reach out to you, we're asking you that someone apply for services, or we have to move forward at some point. And we've identified that you live here. We identified that we served you. We identified that, hey, won't you come into the office? And you may ignore, or you may have ignored many of our correspondence and communication. One of the fourth ways that child support paternity can be established is by default. And what many of you may be aware, by default, I mean that someone applied for child support, and someone said that, say Demetrius is the father, that I am the father. And say that I'm sitting at the job, I get notices at home. They keep telling me child support, say, hey, come into the office, we want to talk to you. And I ignore those notices. And finally, they serve me. They identify where I stay. They locate me. They serve me to, have a hearing to address the issue, and say that I failed to show up to that hearing. Now, it's up to the judge if the judge wants to continue that hearing and give me an opportunity to be there and participate. But say that the court proceeding, the hearing is continuing, and I failed to show up. The court can establish paternity by default. So think about it this way. I may not even be the biological father, but since I didn't participate, I am. And it also leads to further implications, which I'll talk about as well in regards to order establishment. But I wanted to kind of throw it out there because when you talk to any of your family, friends, those you work with, even in your situation, paternity is very important because it provides benefits. It's a legal standing, but also you have to remember that there's multiple ways that you get there. One of the best ways is DNA testing. Another way is acknowledging. Another way, of course, is if your child's born of a marriage. And I say that child born of a marriage because I love bringing up and I'm just kind of being facetious again, but I don't remember, you guys remember Kim Kardashian? I know she's getting divorced from Kanye, and I look at TMZ, I'll just be honest with you. But Kim Kardashian, she was with this basketball player, I think his name was Humphries, I forgot the gentleman's first name. And I remember that unfortunately, I think there were some cheating allegations that took place. And I think she was with Kanye while she was married to Mr. Humphries. And she kept trying to get a divorce as quick as possible. And I tell young men this all the time. She was trying to get a divorce as quick as possible because she understood that if that child is born in this marriage, Mr. Humphries has the right to say that's my child unless the divorce decree says his child was not born of the marriage. So if Kanye West had took that child once the child was born, and say that she was still married to Mr. Humphreys, if she took that child, he took that child and went to Montana. I think he had a studio in Montana, and say he's going to show his child, his alleged child, okay, allegedly, Montana, and help, and just enjoy life. Mr. Humphreys could said, Kanye kidnapped my child because that child was born of a marriage. And I tell that story a lot to young men to understand just interesting enough how paternity can be established and the implications of marriage, among other things. But when it comes to default, if child support reaches out to those those that you serve, please tell them to respond, because honestly, the child support program, we're not trying to hurt you. We recognize over the years that, sometimes parents are not necessarily deadbeat. They can be dead broke. And so rather than trying to enforce, we need to do what we can to help them moving forward, to help them provide the supportive services, like the young lady that said earlier about the employment services and skill sets they provide through an application. We want to connect to the right partners so that we can get our clients to move forward. So I kind of want to throw out that paternity as well, the importance of it. But I get this question from many parents as well, is that, okay, I established paternity, but does that give me legal rights? Now, I'm going to say this: in every other state, territory in this country, when you are the biological parent, you are the legal parent. Now, what do I mean by legal parent? What I mean is that you have the right for custody. You have the right to petition the Superior Court for maybe access and visitation to get a parenting time, to get a parenting time order agreement in place. You have the right, a legal right to custody, among other things, to your child. But since you're the biological parent, that doesn't endow you in Georgia those rights. And we're the only state in this union where you could be the biological parent, which means that you can pay child support, but you may not have access and right to your child legally. Because in Georgia, there's a two-pronged process. So you could be a biological parent, when I said earlier, maybe by, no, I will throw this out there. If you're married, you are the legal parent in Georgia. But if you are out of wedlock births, if you're the biological parent, and maybe your paternity was established through acknowledgement, maybe paternity was established through DNA testing, a default, whatever, that doesn't guarantee you the legal parent. And years ago, when I said that paternity acknowledgement form, Georgia had a little box at the bottom years ago that allowed parents to legitimize and obtain legal rights for children that are aged 2 years or younger, but that's no longer in place anymore. The General Assembly determined that now you have to go to the court, and the court has to have that ability and responsibility to endow, provide, and say that this biological parent is a legal parent. So I just kind of want to throw that out there, because you may hear in the library system, you may hear but from family members and others that, hey, I'm the biological parent, so I have legal rights. Well, that may be in other states, and you may be the legal parent because your order was established in another state. But here in Georgia, it's a two-pronged process. If your order established here in Georgia, you are the biological parent when paternity established and the order established, among other things, but you may not be the legal parent. So I hear all the time, we talked about paternity establishment, and there may be moments in this presentation I may pause and allow Marquita, the host, an opportunity to let me know if there's any questions, because I don't want to miss any questions. There will be maybe 10 to 15 minutes following this presentation. But order establishment. One thing I want you to know is that paternity in itself doesn't mean someone is obligated to pay child support. Paternity just says that someone is the biological parent. It doesn't say that this person is now supposed to pay $800, $700 a month. But paternity, you need paternity established before you can get an order established. You remember I talked about earlier about default, where you have paternity established by default because maybe the non-custodial parent failed to show up. Think about it from this way. Not only you could be the biological parent by default, but what happens when you're not in a court proceeding? What happens to that order? Now, a lot of times some courts could say, I'm going to impute or assume based on minimum wage what this gentleman is making. And I'm going to establish an order amount based on that. And Georgia's income share state, so we look at both incomes of both parents. But in some states, maybe based on information that the child support program has available, maybe based on information that the custodial mother provides to the court, you could be unemployed. You could have been making $80,000 last year, but based on the information provided and based on the fact that you wasn't there, you're unemployed, you made $8,000 last year, but based on information that you wasn't there, you're now getting your order established based on the fact that of prior income, not even based on your actual income. Now think about that. You could be the biological parent when you may not know this person because you didn't fail to show up to court, but also you can get your order established not even based on what you're actually making. And it's possible. So, and I throw that out there as a brain teaser because I was reading, and I don't want to get too academic, but I was reading a Urban Institute report from Elaine Sorensen, a researcher, an economist that deals with child support. And she looked at maybe the top 10 to 15 largest child support agencies in the country, from Texas, California, Florida, those large states. And she looked at the fact of ability to pay. Like when you looked at the unpaid debt owed by these non-custodial parents, of the millions and millions and billions of debt owed, hundreds of millions of debt that's owed by these non-custodial parents, what would you think the income, the annual income of those parents would be? So if I'm a non-custodial parent and she's doing her study and I'm someone who owes large portions of my unpaid support, maybe to the state or to the mother, but I owe debt for child support, what would you think the annual income would be? She did her research and saw that the annual income, and this is based on 2010 or 11, so it's a little dated, but the annual income of those individuals who owed maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt was $10,000 to $15,000 annually. Now think about that. You have a non-custodial parent who owes 15, who only maybe his or her life made as only made roughly maybe $10,000 to $15,000 a year, but who owes $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 of debt. What that shows you is that maybe this non-custodial father or mother did not participate in the process. This non-custodial parent did not participate, and now it's a situation where an paternity was established, an order was established, and the order was established based on antiquated information, or an order was established that that non-custodial parent did not have an opportunity to be involved and give voice. So now when you don't pay, and it's different than you pay an order, you make a income where you can pay at least some of the order, but if you're making something that you can't even maintain and pay your living expenses, and then you're trying to pay a child support order, those unpaid debt is accruing, is really accruing. And what we've seen in the child support program is that when non-custodial parents get to a point where they are having struggling and difficulty paying child support, it happens when they reach a threshold of 20%. So when the child support obligation many times is more than 20% of their income, it becomes difficult. It becomes a situation that they may continue to pay, but now they're trying to hustle and trying to do little things to kind of make sure that they meet the obligation among meeting their living expenses as well. Again, that's not something that applies, the 20% threshold applies, that ratio applies to every state, but I throw it out there because it shows that ability to pay is very important to us with a child support program. Because I said before, we understand that everybody's not necessarily deadbeat, you may be dead broke at this point. So order establishment is very important, but like I said before, you cannot be paying anything unless you have paternity established and an order established. Now, what many of you may not be aware when it comes to order establishment is that doesn't mean that your child support obligations is stuck and you can never, as a custodial parent or even non-custodial parent, increase or ask for or increase or reduction in your child support amount. There's a term called modification in the child support program. And those of you on call may be familiar with that, but modification means this. If you have a child support order, say you're a custodial mother, and you have a child support order, and you're saying, you know something, I live in Georgia. Georgia's an income share state. He has just received a significant increase in pay. He went from part-time to full-time, and I know my order, I feel like my order is not reflective of that change of income. And now I want to request a modification to my order. Now, what many of you may not be aware, the child support programs in many states will automatically, administratively review your order in their cases, their case law every 3 years. So every 3 years, they review your case to determine, should we notify the parties that we feel that a modification should take place or a review of the order should take place, and that if determined acceptable, maybe administratively or maybe by the court, we will modify the order to reflect actual income. It happens every 3 years, but you can also make a request at any point. Now, there is a cost. So if you say, I'm not going to wait till every 3 years for the agency to initiate some type of review, you as a parent can say, I want to make a request for a modification. Now, there is a cost. It's not an upfront cost in many states, but if it's determined after the child support agency does their review and make their determination, that money will be owed. Now, that money could be owed by the custodial parent, that money could be owed by the non-custodial parent, or the child support agency could say that money is owed equally between both parents. That's really up to state plan or state regulations, state policy, but every state's a little bit different. But I want to throw one caveat for many of the non-custodial parents on the call and also the custodial parents on the call. You got to be careful. When you request a modification to your order, even though you may be the custodial mother and you say, I know his income has changed, I hope you really know. And the reason I say I hope you really know is because we have to look at it from both sides, both perspectives. If we determine that after you made that request for us to review and determine if a modification is acceptable, if we determine that, something, rather than going up, like going up another $200 or $300, we actually need to decrease the order. You can't go back now and say, okay, I want to take that back. We have to move forward, determine what's the actual incomes, what's reflected, and we have to make that determination. So I would tell for many of the parents on the call, many of those you involved in the child support program, if you don't know, try to find out as much as you can, because if you make that request to the child support agency, we have to look at it from both sides. And sometimes I get complaints from maybe custodial parents or even non-custodial parents who a non-custodial father could call me and say, why did my order go up when I made a request to go down? I said, we have to look at it from both sides. We have that responsibility to not only the parents, to the state, to make sure that the child support program order is established based on actual income. What I said earlier, and I kind of want to go back for a second. What many of you may not be aware, when I talk about child support services, I'm talking about someone applied for services. So someone paid $25 application fee and applied, or someone was referred from a public assistance agency, as I said earlier, to the child support program for reimbursement purposes, because maybe a parent or a child is receiving a public benefit like food stamp, TANF, Medicaid, among other things. You also have to remember as well is that the modification is you got to be very careful with modifications, but also we are a program that's built on being fair to both parties. We tend on being fair, and we need to understand that one of the things that we changed in our program years ago is that we changed some of our legislation and regulation of what we require for the child support program. What many of you may not be aware is that in some states, when someone was incarcerated, for example, we treated that as voluntary unemployment. Now, what do I mean when we treat as voluntary unemployment? What I mean to say is that what we did is say, if you were incarcerated, so if you're a non-custodial father and the custodial parent has a child support order and he or she is incarcerated, when that parent's incarcerated, that child support order, we're not going to allow the child support agency the ability, and some states did this, to even modify the order. In some states, if they want to come back to us and say, or come back to a parent and say, hey, listen, regardless if you're incarcerated for maybe 10 years or 3 years or whatever duration of time, we're not going to modify your order. We're going to let that unpaid support continue to toll. Now, the difficulty and the problem with that is that what we found in the federal office is that when that amount continues to toll, many parents not only come out when they're incarcerated with restitution, among any issues around housing, trying to get a job, they also have issues where now they have thousands of unpaid child support debt. In some states, that child support debt, there could be interest attached to that debt. So it could be like a 6% interest on top of it. So we found many non-custodial parents that they were getting out of prison, getting out of correctional facilities. There were situations where they found themselves maybe getting back in because they felt that's the only way they could pay that debt down was maybe getting more involved with maybe the underground economy or illicit activities. So what we did in the federal office, roughly maybe 2016, is tell states that you cannot treat incarceration as voluntary unemployment. So if a parent is eligible for a modification, you have to modify. And you can do it one or two ways. In the child support program, if someone's incarcerated, if they're going to be incarcerated for more than 180 days, the child support agency has to either contact both parents and say, we're going to review the order, determine it should be modified, and we're going to do it administratively, or the child support program has to notify the parents that they are eligible for modification. So you receive notice or we do it administratively. Here in Georgia, they provide notice. In some states, they may do it, like Alaska, they do it administratively. Other states like California do it administratively. But some states, based on their policy, has a determination how they want to move forward. But I throw that out there because we are changing as a program. We're trying to get to a point where we are really, really, really looking at ability to pay, that we're really discerning that we have what we have on the books, what we have through our databases, through our interfaces, maybe Internal Revenue Service, Department of Labor. It's actually reflected what the parents can pay for child support purposes. So there's things like a civil contempt checklist. And a civil contempt checklist is this, and I want many of you to kind of be aware of this. We hear a lot of times, I get calls from parents saying that, maybe custodial parents saying that, why has the child support program not petitioned the court for a show cause hearing to see, because I haven't got any support in the last 3 or 4 months to incarcerate this non-custodial parent because he or she is willfully evading and not paying child support. And I tell the parent that that type of enforcement activity is certain on the book. We can suspend driver's license, we can intercept taxes, we can send income withholding to the employer, we can do negative credit reporting, we can place liens on property, we can do a lot of those enforcement activities up to petition the court for contempt. But we want to be sure that this case is eligible for contempt, because I said earlier, sometimes people may be dead broke, not dead beat. Because in order to be held in contempt, the court has to show that you maliciously evaded your responsibility. You willfully and maliciously evaded, which means that you not only, you're not broke, you have the ability to pay and you're choosing not to. So many child support agencies, what we require in regulation in the federal office, many child support agencies have what they call a contempt checklist. So if you have a case in the child support system, a contempt checklist is this. The child support program is going to look at ability to pay. The child support program is going to look at a lot of these other factors and go through this checklist to determine, should we send this case to our attorneys to petition the court to see, should we have a show cause hearing for the court to determine what to do with this parent? Should we require a lump sum payment? Did you let the parent go? Or should, unfortunately, the non-custodial parent be incarcerated for purposely evading? And so many parents may not necessarily be aware that many of the child support programs are going through this process of going through this contempt checklist to determine ability to pay, because the last thing we want to do is have the court incarcerate somebody for not having a job. Because to be honest with you, that hurts the custodial parent and also the non-custodial parent. Because you think about a non-custodial parent, a non-custodial father specifically being incarcerated, well, he or she is not working. So regardless of duration of time that he's incarcerated, that could be times that maybe we could partner with another agency, another body to get him a job, to give him an opportunity to start paying support. So now support goes to the custodial mother or maybe to the custodial parent. And I said earlier, and I want to be careful about custodial, defining what a custodial parent is. In some states, and for those of you who have minors, and depends on what state that you live, and it depends on what state that your order is established in. If, not necessarily your order, but your child's order establishment, some of you could be a parent with a minor child, say a 16-year-old young son, and that 16-year-old son got another minor pregnant. In some states, until those minors become, that minor son becomes an adult, in some states 18, you are obligated to pay child support for that child, which means that if you don't pay it, and you as the parent, you as the grandparent, you can be obligated to pay that support in some states. And one of those states is South Carolina. You can be obligated. So you got to be careful, and also you got to provide information to the kids as well. Maybe your child, or maybe if you're the grandparent, your grandchild, to kind of understand implications. Because I've had a situation where a grandmother called me and was frustrated, and I tried to help her, and she was on fixed income, and she was taking care of her 2 grandkids, and one of the grandkids had a child with another minor. And she was questioning, wanted to know, why was the child support agency in her state requiring her? Why was the obligation amount based on what she was making? Why is it we're requiring her to pay the support, and we're going after her for the support rather than her minor grandchild? And I had to advise her that in the state that you're in, you are obligated until he reaches 18. And we'll try to do what we can within it. Legally, that's how it is in the state. So those circumstances like that could arise in many states throughout the country. When it comes to child support as well, I want many of you to understand, when I talk about modification, I'm kind of jump back in a little bit. When I talk about modifications, one of the things you have to be very careful about as well, and which I wanted to get to, was guidelines. Every state child support agency in this country or a territory has what they call child support guidelines. So remember I talked about earlier about when you make a request for a modification, you need to be careful. Well, you have the ability to look. Some states have what they call a child support guideline calculator, which is only an estimate based on your assumption of what the other parents making and what you're making to see would you be eligible for modification. And to be honest with you, the modification, the change of circumstance that will warrant the modification varies from state to state. In many states, the income of both parents, if it's an income share state, I'm going to use Georgia here, the income of both parents have to be, there has to be a change of maybe 25% in prior income. So either you have a less pay, or maybe the other parent getting more pay or less pay, but it has to be a change of circumstance of at least 25% for the child support agency. Okay, we have the ability, the legal ability to now modify the order. In some states, the child support agency has the ability to administratively do it, but in some states, it's a legal option. In some states, it's quasi, which means that in like North Carolina, if you have a child support obligation in North Carolina and you seek a modification, even if you're in Georgia here and you seek a modification request in North Carolina because they established your child support order and they are what we call the controlling state. In many states, like North Carolina, when you make that request, they're going to look at the guidelines. They're going to make a determination. What North Carolina has what they call a child support guideline calculator that they can use. But you can also look at that guideline calculator, and also you can ask the child support agency, can you give me information about how your guidelines are determined? It could be a spreadsheet they provide to you, or just information that can help you determine, when I make this request, because I'm paying this money if it's not within 3 years, when I make this request for a modification, am I certain that, or I feel comfortable that it's not going to be a fruitless cause, that they will come back to me and say that no modification is warranted, or they may come back to me and say, you know, something, I wanted my order to go up, it's going to go down. So I just want you to be blindsided by that, because you can ask any state that you're in the country for a modification request. One thing I want to throw out there to you is that when I'm talking about child support, I'm talking about child support agencies, someone apply for services. There's a thing against full and partial cases, as I said before. If you got a partial case, you got a divorce decree, you may have a child support order, but you don't have anybody enforcing your obligation. So many times I get parents calling me and say, hey, no, the child support agency is not doing anything with my case. I look into it, they don't have a case. No one applied for services. No one's referred to the child support program through public assistance. So you need to apply, or maybe one of the parents need to apply to get that services, because the court can't suspend your license. The court can't send an income withholding order to an employer to garnish a non-custodial parent wages for child support. The court cannot intercept taxes. The court cannot do that. And also, when I talk about tax intercept, when I talk about tax, I'm talking about tax returns. We intercepted the stimulus payments recently. Honestly, if the current administration sends out additional stimulus payments and the law allows us to do it, we can maybe be able to do that as well, unless there's the legislation says that we are prohibited from doing so. But I want you to know about, when it comes to your tax returns, for many of your parents, or many of you, we do garnish, we do intercept, we do offset, we do take the tax return. But many times I get questions from parents saying, well, I'm married. Especially non-custodial parents. Well, I'm married. So you're telling me you're going to take my wife's tax return, our tax return, because we filed jointly? I would say this. When we determine that a tax return is a joint return, and we have to be careful because we can't really share this information to the custodial parent. So when the custodial parent calls our office and says, I know he filed taxes, and I haven't got anything. It's been 2 months. I haven't received anything. The child support program cannot tell her his tax filing status, but the child support program can tell her, ma'am, sir, whoever, the custodial parent, that we receive notification of his return, and we have to hold on to it for 6 months, 180 days. We have to hold on to it. Now, as a custodial parent, you may ask, well, why do you have to hold on to it? We cannot tell you that why we can hold on to it, because we can't come back and tell you about the tax filing status, things like that. But all we can say is that we have a vested reason to do so. And sometimes those vested reasons that there may be an allegation of fraud when Internal Revenue Service. Sometimes invested interest is that maybe the child support program, based on other factors, may say that we have the ability to hold on to a little longer for extenuating circumstances, or based on the tax filing status. So if you get issues where you're thinking that as a custodial parent, well, I haven't got a return, you can certainly call the child support program. But based on what we tell you as an agency, you may you may have to hold on to it. You may have to wait a little bit longer because honestly, based on the tax filing status, we would automatically give your money maybe within 10, 15, 30 days. But based on what's happening, there's a vested reason why the child support program may have to hold on to it up to 180 days, maybe sometimes a little bit longer based on circumstances. Now, the thing I want to point out, if you're a non-custodial parent on this call and you're married and you have a child support obligation, which is your child support obligation, and you want to protect your spouse, you need to file an injured spouse form. Because if you file a joint return and you don't file an injured spouse form with the Internal Revenue Service within a certain duration of time, then once we get that money and once that time period expires, and once we send that money to the custodial parent, you can't necessarily come to the child support agency and say, I want the money back. Because all we're going to say is that we sent the money to the custodial parent. We represent the rights of the state. We don't represent any party. If you have any issues about what was sent to the custodial parent, you have to contact her as non-custodial parent, contact her or him to address that issue. Because we only sent what we was legally obligated to send within certain procedures and timelines. So again, if you are married and you're a non-custodial parent and you want to protect the interests of your spouse, especially if you file jointly, you need to download the form, the injured spouse form, and you need to file that so that child support program has it on record to say that of any return that for child support, any return that the families receive, that you and your spouse receive, we're only going to intercept and withhold the amount that's owed by that non-custodial parent who's in our child support caseload. I talked about earlier as well, kind of going through some conversation here. I talked about earlier as well about we do provide intergovernmental services for child support purposes. And when I say intergovernmental services, you can apply for child support as a custodial parent here in Georgia and say that the father, the non-custodial parent, father moves to Alaska. That doesn't bar you from seeking services. What we do in the child support agency, we will reach out, we'll locate the other parent. Because you may think that parent's in Alaska, that parent may be in California. But we, based on our databases, we will locate what the other parent is, and we'll work with the other state as if the parent is in our state to enforce and provide services. It could be a situation where you request a modification. It could be a situation where you're requesting enforcement. We will do what we can to work across state lines to make sure that it's a seamless transition. But I will throw this out there. What we do in one state, so if you're in Georgia and the other parent moves to California, we can make a request for enforcement, but we cannot tell California that you need to now petition the court for a show cause hearing because we think he should be locked up. We think he should be held in contempt. We can't do that. We have to tell California that you have to enforce according to your procedures. And whatever procedures that California has in place, they have to use accordingly. But again, intergovernmental processes and services are available. And also, we recently ratified the Hague Treaty involving international child support. So even if the non-custodial parent moves overseas, and we're getting more countries involved, we don't have a relationship, and Mexico hasn't ratified the treaty yet, but there's roughly maybe, and I'm guessing right now, I think maybe 61 to 65 countries. Actually, I think it's 69 countries who are part of the Hague. And what that says is this: if you go overseas, we can still work with that other country to enforce and get support that's rightfully owed to the child or children involved. So I just want to point that out there when it comes to intergovernmental processes, because where the other parent goes does not bar us from enforcing that case. And also, if you're a non-custodial parent on the call as well, remember I said earlier about when it comes to the obligation amount that's owed to the custodial parent, that you cannot wipe that away. Because you lost your job, you can't go back to us and say, we want you to terminate the amount of unpaid debt that's owed. Only she can do that. The court can't do it. The federal office can't do that. Well, I want to be careful and throw out that is family arrears. There is a such thing as state arrears. And for many of you non-custodial parents on the call, a lot of states have what they call debt compromise programs. Now, they may not necessarily advertise it, but it's this. If you have state arrears, unpaid debt that's owed to the state for maybe public assistance, like I said before, Medicaid, in some states, food stamp, TANF, state child support agencies have the ability to work with those other public assistance agencies to wipe down or remove and or forgive that debt. But there's a process involved. So if you're a non-custodial parent on this call today, if you know someone, maybe you serve within your organizations who have questions around unpaid debt and how they can manage that debt, I would advise them to contact the child support program and say, am I eligible to participate in like a debt compromise program? And what that program is this: The program says of the debt owed to the state, not to the family, not to the custodial parent, to the debt owed to the state. Let's look at your order. Let's modify it accordingly, and let's enter into an agreement where you are paying as a non-custodial parent continuously for 6 months. If you pay the order amount continuously for 6 months, we will wipe away 20-30% hypothetically of that state owed debt. And maybe that may be all we can do, or maybe other situation where if you do another 6 months or maybe a year, we maybe do another 15-20%, something like that. That is a game saver for many non-custodial parents who owe debt, who's trying to manage that debt, who's also trying to get some of that debt reduced. And I've seen thousands of dollars of debt reduced by parents asking to do such program as this, and also working through that process to kind of determine if they're eligible, and also being consistent and accountable to meeting the eligibility terms of that program. So I kind of want to throw that out as well. In many programs they have as well, since we're talking about fatherhood and engagement, Georgia has, many states have what they call a fatherhood program. And what that fatherhood program is this: if you are underemployed, if you're unemployed, if you got extenuating circumstances where it's stopping you from paying child support, they have programs maybe through direct, maybe in-house in some states, and maybe just through partnership to maybe help you get a job, to maybe get you referrals to mental health, to help you deal with issues around access and visitation. Maybe a situation where you have legal rights to your child and you're seeking a situation where you want to have access to your child. And so they may partner with access and visitation sites to do like mediation, to get parenting time language in the child support order, to do like supervised visitation, among many things that can be very, very helpful. So there's additional services that can certainly be available for many parents out there. So the fatherhood programs are available. Access visitation services could be available as well. Some states even partner with VA services. So it could be a situation where a non-custodial parent is receiving VA services, and we're working with the VA Veterans Administration to make sure that we're providing supportive services in conjunction to what he or she is receiving. For example, we had a project in many states a couple of years ago where we did homeless veterans. So we try to get more homeless veterans to meet their obligation by providing them direct services. We may have partnered with organizations to do rapid rehousing, employment, mental health, substance abuse treatment, then get to a point where once he or she is back on their feet, then address child support, and let's do some debt management around debt forgiveness, among other things, to help them reduce their child support debt, continue to move forward, because we understand that we want them to have a healthy life, because if they're paying child support involved in their kid's life, it benefits the entire family, not only the custodial parent, but the entire family unit. So I know I have just only a couple of minutes left, but I want to throw out a couple of myths out there about child support that you may have heard that could be true or not. I just kind of want you to think about these. One of those are, and I receive all the time from many parents, is that, well, when my child turns 18, I'm through paying child support. I would ask you what you guys think. I know the lines are not necessarily open, but I will tell you this: that is a myth. Due to the fact your child turns 18, that doesn't necessarily guarantee. And 18 and 20 is 18 or 20 in some states, and sometimes 21 in some states. It's based on the state law, based on when your order was established and who established your order within the country. So if Georgia established, it could be 18 or 20, and New Jersey could be 21. It could be many places, different age of emancipation for the child. But that age of emancipation for child support only deals with current support, as I said earlier, that ongoing support. So, okay, you're paying $500 a month. So you got maybe $2,000 of arrearages that you haven't paid. Well, if you continue to pay that to that $500 a month to the child reach the age of 18, and age 18 is the age of emancipation in your state, then yes, that stops the current support. But remember, that unpaid debt is owed. That the unpaid debt, we're going to continue to enforce that until the custodial parent says she doesn't want it, want the case closed. Because I've seen parents that receive Social Security benefits, and they call me saying that, why is my Social Security benefits getting garnished? And sometimes child support agency can garnish up to 50 to 55, sometimes 60% of someone's income in certain circumstances. Now, they don't do that all the time. And when they do that, I do intercede and kind of see what we can do to kind of reduce that threshold amount, so that the non-custodial parent has income to live and not only pay child support. But that does happen in certain circumstances. So that is a myth. If you have unpaid debt, age of emancipation doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're stopped paying. That unpaid debt follows the case. It follows you until it's resolved, or until the custodial parent says she doesn't want it and our case is closed. And even if a custodial parent says that, I'm going to close your child support case, that's a case. That's a case in our system. that doesn't terminate the order. We're not going to terminate the order. The court has to terminate the order. So it could be a situation where, and I see in some situations, some parents, they may close and say, hey, the child's 10 years of age, me and the other parent worked out an agreement, and we're going to close the case. And maybe next year she comes back or he comes back and tries to reopen it, which we do. We reopen the case and we'll move forward because we understand the order is still there. Because you close your case, all that does is says that the child support agency is not enforcing at this time. But that still doesn't stop a custodial parent, but seeking relief from the court. He or she can seek abandonment and seek the court to get involved. Or, like I said before, she can always come back at a later date if the child's still a minor and arrearages are owed, to apply or reopen the case so that we can continue to move forward for child support purposes. Another question I get is, if I pay the mother through Cash App, my child support obligation, is that okay? Is that a gift or something? What is that? Is that a gift? It's true. It's a gift. So according to federal law, child support has to be paid directly to the child support agency. Again, it doesn't matter if you have a private case where no one's ever applied for child support services. It doesn't matter if you have a full open case with the child support system where someone applied or you're in the system. I say this again. All payments have to go through the child support agency because we are the record keeper in many states who hands the money off from one parent to the next. And it's a benefit to both parents because we record the issue. If you ask for a payment summary, we can give you that. If any ambiguity goes in about what was distributed, what was dispersed to the other parent, what was given back to maybe public assistance agencies for reimbursement. When it comes to those circumstances, we can pull our records and reply, give you documentation to kind of help you moving forward. But again, anything through Cash App, anything that's, if unless you provide maybe a check and write child support, could be considered a gift. And even a check, if you write a check and send it directly to the mother or to the custodial father and write child support, he or she can come back and say, well, that wasn't really for child support. You just wrote that down. Now we will go to the court and let the court determine it. But think about it. Due to the fact that this payment did not go through the child support agency, we now have to go through an outside body, another body like the court, to make a determination. Now, something like that is easy. You see it written down in the check, or the money or for child support. The court can very well credit that. But if someone's sending a direct payment to the other parent, that can certainly, if it's not sent directly to the child support agency, that is a gift. Also, I get this from a lot of non-custodial fathers. Do I have the right to know how she spends my child support? Now, I understand you may have concerns about how the money is spent, but we don't have that authority to question how the other parent is spending that money. I tell many non-custodial fathers that your child is eating, your child's getting what he or she, or children getting what he or she deserve, needed. If not, then the other agency will be involved to address that issue, especially if safety or permanency is an issue. But you can't come to us and say you have a concern that how the money is being spent is not into the best interest of the child, because we are like a pass-through agency that if you don't pay, we do assist. We're encouraging and enforcing that child support obligation, but we only pass money through. We don't determine how that money should be used. Also, I get questions about, can I, is it a myth that if I quit my job, I'm no longer paying child support? That's a myth. If you, like I said before, you quit your job, that doesn't mean you're not obligated to pay child support. There's only certain circumstances where you may not be obligated to pay child support. And those circumstances are very limited. For example, in some states, they have state law that says if you are financially incapacitated, which means that for the duration of your life, you're not going to have the ability to work, that the court can work with the child support agency to say, we cannot no longer enforce your obligation. So the court can terminate the order, or even the child support agency, we have to close your case based on that circumstances. Or it could be a situation where, say that the only income that the parent's receiving is SSI, based on need through Social Security. Based on that fact, we can close the case among many others. It could be a situation of non-cooperation. So say if you're a non-custodial father and the custodial parent, for some odd reason, is not cooperating. Now, based on her ability to cooperate, if we need her to move forward with the case, we can provide notice, say, hey, listen, come to the office, provide information. We can't move forward unless you provide this information. If she fails to do it within a certain duration of time, we can close the case. Again, she can, if the child's a minor and there's arrearages owed, she can go back and reopen the case. But that non-cooperation could be an issue as well. But I will say this, if you hear from a non-custodial parent that if I don't cooperate, they're going to close my case, absolutely not. We would never close a case based on non-cooperation of a non-custodial parent. Non-cooperation of non-custodial parent does not bar us from moving forward. We will continue to do what we can. And honestly, there may be issues around locate. Sometimes when I speak to parents, especially custodial parents, there are issues where they say, you know, child support tell me they can't find a parent. Well, it may take a while, but eventually we are successful, but it may take a while to identify where he or she is at. But I will say this, sometimes it's only as simple as maybe a Sports Illustrated being in his or her name, going to a certain address for us to verify, maybe through postal verification elsewhere, maybe through our systems, that this person lives here. And once we identify this person lives here, and even if he or she is evading, it's not necessarily answering the door when a process server comes or is ignoring our certified mail. Like I said before, we continue to have to move forward. And many times we can petition the court saying, based on this verification of address, that he or she is evading, and we're going to move forward with getting an order established, a paternity established, and for us to move forward with enforcement, because we understand that the children need the support. So I know I threw a lot of information out there, and I do apologize, I didn't do my video because of bandwidth issues, but I kind of threw a lot there information out to you, but I want to kind of whet your appetite again. I want you to kind of understand just the scope very briefly of child support. So Marquita, if it's okay with those on the line, I kind of wanted to kind of open it up if anyone had any questions, concerns. I don't know if there's anything that's in the chat menu, but at this time, I kind of want to open it up in case there was some Q&A.
There's actually 2 questions in the chat. Okay, so the first one says, is a DNA test from a home kit admissible in court?
Well, I don't want to speak about the judge, but I will say this, I would lean toward no. And the reason I say I lean toward no, and it can be evidence in a court proceeding, but to say that DNA test that you did yourself is going to be admissible to determine and establish paternity, I would say that the court would use that as evidence as for your intent to, but they may request that the parties who seek maybe assistance of the child support agency, if they have a child support case, to do DNA testing, paternity acknowledgement, something like that, so that we have a outside body that's verified that paternity has been established with a biological parent.
Okay, and the last question just says, what happens if a petition is contested?
Well, every state allows through court procedure and rules and procedure for a parent to contest, but a mistake of law is very valid. You have the wrong person. We've seen that situation before where we have in the past, not anything recently, but there in the past has been a situation where we have intercepted someone's income, and we realized that based on the name, based on how the Social Security was, we made a mistake through our system, or or agency made a mistake through the system. So that was a mistake of law where legally that person wasn't obligated to pay child support. But unless something like that happens, where there's contesting saying that I am not the legal parent, or contesting saying that an order was terminated previously. So, Your Honor, she's trying to establish an order, and I have an order here that says that we terminate the order, so I'm no longer obligated, among other things like that. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough selling for the non-custodial parent to contest, unless something like that, where he or she is not obligated for the support. So Marquita, was there any additional questions? And those on the call, please feel free. I know I went through a lot of information, and I do apologize. I didn't bring a slide deck or anything, but I can certainly share that with Marquita and certainly Dr. Lett, to kind of share with you, give you some additional context. But please, if there's any additional questions, you're certainly welcome to ask me.
There's none in the chat right now.
Okay. So with that being said, I wanted to thank Dr. Lett for an opportunity to present, to kind of, I like to have a discussion. It's a little bit different to me. What I normally do is just kind of do face-to-face, but I know the pandemic's kind of have us doing virtual, and I kind of just see what everybody's going, the direction they want to go as for the issues they're facing. But again, I will certainly provide my information to Marquita and Dr. Lett. So if there's any additional questions, concerns, I will address them. I will say this as well. There may be a situation since I work in the federal office, because I don't handle case management, that I may forward it to my colleagues in a state or territory that's amenable to your issue or your case. But I will be providing oversight and assistance as well. But again, I wanted to thank Dr. Lett and others for an opportunity to speak, share. And again, this is just, I like to say, whetting your appetite. This is a very complex system in child support. I learn things every day, and I look forward to continue to learn and hopefully continue to learn from you guys as well when you ask your questions and engage me moving forward. So thanks again, and I'll pass it on to Marquita or Dr. Lett. Thank you.
Real quick, if they wanted to get in contact with you offline, how would they do that?
I'll provide my email, and Marquita, I'll provide my email and phone number to you. And you can share it to whoever you like on the call, or those that would like to share it to others that may not have been able to participate in this call. And they can call me, email me directly, and I will respond as soon as possible.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
All right. Roz, you want to close us out?
I will. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you have learned a lot and taken good notes. But if you do have questions, as our speakers have said, you can get in touch with the library and we will get them in touch with you if you didn't get their email address or your phone number or anything like that. Or you can call the library at any time, any of the branches, and they will refer you to the headquarters library, and then we can get someone to answer your questions. So we thank you for joining us today, and stay healthy and stay safe. Wear your mask, social distance, and help us get rid of the pandemic. Get your vaccine.